but we have a bunch of units in Pittsburgh, and I had no idea Taylor Swift was having a concert.
Like Corey has one way of thinking, I have another way of thinking. He has one style, I have a different style. It's like you got to find the happy blend.
I'll never forget, I actually recorded the phone call when I quit, and I posted it as like a reel on TikTok, and I was like, wow.
To learn the game of the hospitality business, connect you with owners, connect you with property management companies, connect you with the right people.
Getting the yeses are easy. I would argue it's more challenging to find deals that are as profitable as you want, that are worth your time.
You know, that would take this thing to new heights, that would be able to flourish, that could leave their job in 2 years or whatever, like you did.
A friend of mine introduced me to the ideas of arbitrage and co-hosting through Airbnb, and we just took it and ran with it, and it was an absolute nightmare, right? It was just property from hell. I had like a rodent infestation in the house with my tenants, roach infestation in the house with my tenants, mold outbreak, kitchen renovation, lost money on the property because even though it was cash flowing, every dollar I actually cash flow just went back into repairs and fixing things and all that stuff. And I was like, great.
Vince, officially welcome to the Wealth Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, man. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Likewise, guys. Likewise.
Yeah, so we actually got caught up pre-recording talking about jamming on a whole bunch of stuff. We found out we're local to each other and just synergized on a lot of different things. So I'm stoked for this episode, man. But if you can, for those who don't know you, give us a little background on you, who you are, where you're from, and then how you transitioned from corporate into real estate.
Yeah, so first off, Corey, Ryan, thank you so much for having me on here. What you guys have going on here is super special. I mentioned before the podcast, I binged a few episodes and I was just like, dude, great guests, super valuable content, like self-development, not just about real estate, all this stuff. I mean, really, really awesome thing you have going on here. It's special. So I just want to give a shout out to you. Anybody who's listening, please do them a favor. Leave them a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I left one prior to jumping on, and I want you guys to join me. Cool. So I guess let's kind of dive into things, right? So you know how like 9-to-5 professionals or like first-time investors or first-time entrepreneurs, right? They want to break into the world of real estate. They want to break into the world of like creating a passive, like scalable income stream. But what ends up happening is they like keep hitting walls trying to get into like their first real estate investment without spending like tons of capital or like draining their life savings. Or they finally do it. And then guess what? Like the cash flow is nowhere near enough to like actually make an impact on their lives, right? So what I do is I help people launch cash flowing Airbnbs without buying real estate, right? Leveraging Airbnb arbitrage and Airbnb co-hosting. So they can finally make 5-10K a month on autopilot, buy back their time and, their freedom, right? But that's not where it all started for me. I, like you guys, was in the 9-to-5 world. And I thought that the path to freedom was real estate investing, which it certainly is and certainly can be. But I thought the traditional method of investing, like buying, like my first real estate investment property was going to, take me to Grant Cardone Heights and all this stuff. And I ended up buying this real estate investing property. I put together all my savings in my mid-20s. It was like $50,000, $60,000. I'll never forget it. And I buy this property, did a house hack, 2-family home, live in one unit, rented out the other on Long Island in New York. And it was an absolute nightmare, right? It was just property from hell. I had like a rodent infestation in the house with my tenants, roach infestation in the house with my tenants, mold outbreak, kitchen renovation, lost money on the property because even though it was cash flowing, every dollar I actually cash flow just went back into repairs and fixing things and all that stuff. And I was like, great, like I am in an even worse position kind of than I was before. What do I do? So a friend of mine introduced me to the ideas of arbitrage and co-hosting through Airbnb. And we just took it and ran with it because those concepts are cool. It just allows you to get into this without having to spend a lot of capital. So I can break down more of the specifics on how those work, but we just did that, didn't look back, grew it, and here we are.
Awesome, man. This is cool, Vince. My rebuttal to people when they talk about Airbnb arbitrage is I'm thinking like, hey, you're not actually building equity in these properties. You're really starting a hospitality business, and it is the business side, but you're not getting a lot of the benefits of real estate investing. For people that say that to you, what is your like, hey, maybe you're right or maybe you're wrong. Like, tell me about the things that you tell people when they bring that up. Like, well, you're not actually investing in the real estate. You're starting a business with adjacent to real estate, if you will.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head 100%. And I do not disagree with you as somebody that does this. Keep in mind, I came from the world of real estate investing before diving into arbitrage too. So like I was all nurtured on bigger pockets, and even though my property went wrong, I don't not believe in buying real estate. As a matter of fact, I think that's the greatest long-term play. But Airbnb arbitrage, I guess really quick, let me take a quick step back just on the concept for those who are not familiar. We've got arbitrage and we've got co-hosting, okay? And arbitrage is, I'm not going to buy the property. I'm going to rent it from the property owner, furnish it on my dime, list it on Airbnb or another platform, and collect the difference each month. So if it rents for $2K and I've got cleaning utilities another $1,000 and it does $5K a month on Airbnb, I take home $2K, right? Co-hosting, on the other hand, is like your own Airbnb property management business, for lack of a better term, which is, I'm not going to buy the furniture. I'm not going to sign a lease. I'm not going to buy the property. I'm just going to go to you, and you, say, why don't you furnish it? You'll make more money and I'll handle everything for you. Just give me a percentage. Now, you are right. These are both business models, right? They're not necessarily just investment strategies. Now, we could go on all day about like, all right, when does the investment/business model cut off? And what if I can actually make my Airbnb business more passive than a real estate investing, property, which I would argue you can, and we can talk about that. But my point is, it is more of a business model that will involve day-to-day operations and getting other people in the business to run the business for you. But in my opinion, the most beginner-friendly strategy on the planet, because it requires, little to no capital. In both of those examples that I just gave you, I have to pay a $2,000 security deposit. Okay, big deal. Or co-hosting, I don't have any expense. I just have to create my brand and start talking to people. That's it. So these are both the best beginner strategies for people that just don't have capital and all they have is time and energy. And if you can invest those two things in it, you can create cash flow. Now, once you get to cash flow, now let's talk buying assets. But the thing is, this is a great vehicle for just trying to develop that cash flow, because you and I both know, Ryan, Corey, like the average real estate investing property, a tremendous equity. It's a piggy bank, but I'm only getting $200, $300, $400, $500 a month in cash, which does jack for my life. So my point is, get your life back first, then do whatever the hell you want with the money. You get what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I did a reel the other day of like the top 10 ways for beginners to get started in real estate investing. I put house hacking, or I ranked them, out of 10. I put house hacking as a 10, but I put Airbnb arbitrage as an 8, because it is, if you're in your 20s or you're young, or even if you're not, but if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of capital, this can teach you to learn the game of the hospitality business, connect you with owners, connect you with property management companies, connect you with the right people. And I do think it's a great way to get started. Have you found, Vince, that the landlords and the people that you're going after, are they very receptive to you? Is it, what is the percentage of landlords or people that own these buildings that are like, hey, I would want you to bring this business into my property. It's steady. You're going to clean the property. The reason why I feel like it would work is because you have to keep their property in good shape or you're not going to get guests. Do you agree that most landlords are receptive to this, or is there a lot of regulation? Just talk to me through that. I'd love to hear.
Great question. And you also hit the nail on the head. So it's funny. Anybody who says, I want to start with Airbnb arbitrage, they always say my biggest concern is getting landlords to say yes. And they ask me, what's the biggest challenge here? And that's not the challenge. As a matter of fact, getting the yeses are easy. I would argue it's more challenging to find deals that are as profitable as you want, that are worth your time, right? I know there's some stuff out there. I just want to pause and say this. I know there's some stuff out there saying that like the average Airbnb arbitrage deal will net you like $6, $7K a month. That's BS. That happens, and we've seen it happen to people in our community. It's happened to us on certain deals. That is not the average deal, and that is not the case on every beginner opportunity. I would say the average arbitrage deal, we want to aim for at least 1 to 3K per month in cash flow. That's doable, right? Now, the landlord side, right? Here's why this is actually way easier than you think, and I had a big opportunity for this business model. You guys are both landlords, right? What keeps you up at night? Late rent, bad tenants, evictions, getting calls in the middle of the night about the toilet. Okay, I can hire a property manager, but it's going to come out of my margins. The property's not kept clean, all this stuff. It's not passive. So my point is, you renting the property and then using the property to run your business out of it means on-time rent every month. It means the landlord's not getting any calls in the middle of the night. It means you're paying full rent and you're not taking a fee for property management. It means it's passive, and the property is kept in the same condition as it is at the end of year 2 that it is on day 1. So my point is, yes, like we've got to keep this thing running tip top. We're going to have cleaners in there regularly. It's a landlord's dream come true. in all honesty. They get their time back, they sit on their butt and collect rent, and they get the full month rent on time every single month. So that's the easy part. From a regulations perspective, I know this question gets, berated to death and whatnot. And I think we can make it very not so complex. Look at your city, and does it make it next to impossible to list an Airbnb as a non-owner? If the answer is yes, just don't target the city. Like that's the easiest answer I have for anybody. But I will argue this, Corey, with co-hosting, because this is not legal advice, but if in co-hosting, because you are allowing the owner to list the property and you are a co-host, a sub lister, usually that allows you to operate in way more markets than arbitrage would. But my point is, there's like 16,000 cities in the US. If that one isn't a good one, I'm sure you won't be on the street tomorrow,
So do you find that this is actually a pretty simple business to run remote? Like, talk to us about your portfolio of the Airbnb arbitrage that you have. I know we connected pre-recording. I didn't know that you were 30 minutes north of us in the Lehigh Valley, and we're in Philadelphia. Like, I know you have some properties in Philly. Where do yours mostly reside? And do you find that you could open up an Airbnb arbitrage business in Fort Lauderdale if you wanted to? Is it that easy to do this remote?
It's very replicable, very, very replicable. And so our entire portfolio is in the Northeast primarily. We do some co-hosting deals in beach towns in New Jersey. We have some in Philadelphia that are arbitrage. We have some homes in Lehigh Valley. We have a bunch in Pittsburgh. And we actually have a blend of all different types of arbitrage models. It actually gets pretty wild when you really get into the weeds on this. Like there's a vast difference between doing a single family house arbitrage with one landlord versus taking on an apartment complex and taking 30 apartments. Like it's a totally different type of deal. And then co-hosting, of course, is different, and vacation rentals are a little bit different. My point is the concept is the same, and you can certainly build operations in place that allow you to never visit the property again. Almost every single property I've ever launched, and I think we're at about like unit 38 to 40 at this point, like we have never, ever gone back to the property after setting it up. Now, I don't want to sell a pipe dream about like you can completely launch units remotely anywhere across the country or the world or this and that. I do not really believe that, especially when you're just starting out, that you can do a completely remote launch and setup where like other people furnish it for you and you never step foot in the property ever. I think you do need to be there in person to kind of do like a project management type thing, almost like a flip, right?
Yep.
Where you're there for 2 days, which by the way, like you get a three bedroom house, you can furnish that in 2 days. Like you just sacrifice one weekend, and if it nets you $2,000 in cash flow, I'd argue it's worth it, right? So you spend 2 days there, you set it up, and then you never have to go back, and then you build out the automation system. So the automation system, without getting way too in the nitty gritty, it's really simple, right? We just need to be able to automate cleaning, guest experience, and then pricing, right? So cleaning, there's plenty of softwares in place to not only hire cleaners, but plug them directly into your Airbnbs. So they just get automatically updated in notifications. They have to fill out checklists, all that stuff. The most popular one is Turno, Turno, used to be called Turnover B&B,
yep.
Right? That's a great software. Now, you have something like that in place, you're like 90% automated on cleaning, right? Then we've got guest experience. Now, like I need to make sure that if somebody texts me in the middle of the night asking about where the TV remote is or the garage code or this and that, like they need to be attended to, and I don't want to deal with that, right? So we hire virtual assistants overseas for pennies on the dollar to just be tapped into the business 24/7. They handle all guest messaging. And here's the thing is if you find quality people that do that, like quality virtual assistants that are like ex-Airbnb employees, like ours file Airbnb claims for us. They do some minor accounting. They coordinate all of our handyman visits, all that stuff. So it's like, I kid you not, this is now a 1.6 to 2 million ish in revenue portfolio now at this point. Like we tap in a couple hours a week. Like we just touch base with our virtual assistants, and when a problem gets escalated to us, that's when we chime in. But outside of that, it's just like touch base on things every few days just to make sure all the systems are firing. And then the last thing I guess is pricing, which is like, okay, you need to stay booked year round. It's seasonal. You also want to capitalize on maximizing revenue. So use softwares like Price Labs. There's plenty of other ones out there. It's just an automation system, ties in your Airbnbs, fluctuates the pricing year round based on seasonality and demand. Quick funny story on this. I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but we have a bunch of units in Pittsburgh, and I had no idea Taylor Swift was having a concert, right? So, but the software knew. The software saw the demand increase, saw all the hotel prices were going up, all the Airbnb prices were going up. So in that weekend, we check our account and it's like, oh, we charged $900 a night and all of them are booked. And we just made whatever, like 10 grand off of these. You know, it was just like ridiculous, but it was because we're just taking advantage of the tools that are out there. If you have all this stuff in place, like you can genuinely separate yourself from the day to day, like 80 to 90%.
I love that you're not selling a pipe dream here, because I am so sick of the internet trying to tell people that after a month they're going to leave their job or they're going to have financial freedom, or, you know, like for you to be able to say, hey, yeah, I think you can get, I don't know, $1,000 to $3,000 a month in cash flow on one property. I think that's a realistic target. And I know it's doable because I've seen, first of all, I see what my property manager makes on some of our Airbnbs, right? But also, you know, that's a little bit of a different game, but I can see how this is very possible. And like Ryan and I try to do the same thing. It's like we teach people how to buy their first or next rental property. And I'm not telling you that you're going to leave your job after 6 months of owning a rental property. But what we're telling you is that if you buy a few rental properties over a period of time, you're going to turn around in 5 or 6 years and you're going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity to tap into to go play real life Monopoly. And you're going to have a lot less pressure on yourself and you're going to be work optional at one point. And that, to me, is the thing that I want. I appreciate. I already knew I was going to like you pre-recording, but just having that candid conversation about what this can do for you, I already know that it works. Like it's, and I just appreciate that, because I mean, you know, the internet's a wild place out there, and they're telling people that, you know, you're going to be financially free in a couple of days. So it's just, it's cool to hear, I guess is what I'm saying.
I completely agree. This is, I don't want to paint the picture. It's funny. We were talking before this call about like, now we run webinars and live workshops and stuff like that. And one of the things I really emphasize here is by the end of year one of doing this Airbnb arbitrage stuff, we hit our first $1 million run rate, which was like an $80,000 revenue month, like $89,000 revenue month. But I don't want to paint the picture that year was a cakewalk. Like, it was not, right? Like, especially juggling a 9 to 5 and then on the weekends, driving out to cities, launching Airbnbs, doing all this stuff. Like, yeah, like it took a toll on my sanity, my relationship. Like I would lie if I was saying that like, oh yeah, I just 1 hour a week and, you know, you'll make 10K a month in a year. It's like, no, dude, like that was a grind. But my point is, almost anything worthwhile, especially if you're genuinely serious about quitting your full-time job, like that's not just something you just do off of a hobby or a side hustle. Like you just don't. So my point is, anything worthwhile that you're looking to build that is big enough for you to just live completely financially free off of, it's going to take time. It's going to take at least a 9 to 12 month commitment, and just, you got to go all in and burn the boats.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that has been, that mentality of like, there's no turning back for me has been like, it's left me some peace, because I'm just like, there is no other option here. Like, we're doing this full time and you're committed to it. And I think that, you know, I'm mentally unemployable now anyway. So there's no turning back. But go ahead, Ryan. I know you might have something here.
Yeah, just on this topic, it was actually something I wanted to ask about. Can you talk to me about the golden handcuffs and then your decision to officially burn the boats, right? Because I think there's an impasse that a lot of small business owners that are kind of double dipping, if you will, and like playing both games all the way up to the point where you're like, okay, I have enough to cover the bills. I have enough to cover XYZ. Was it a number, a feeling? What was it?
Man, that's a great question. I'll never forget. I actually recorded the phone call when I quit, and I posted it as like a reel on TikTok, and I was like, wow, I was like, I'm going viral. This is insane. And literally like 4 hours after I posted it, my now ex-boss calls me. He's like, dude, like, you can't post that. I'm like, oh shit, you're right. Like, that was probably borderline illegal. My bad. I'm sorry. So my point is, that was the reason I recorded it is it was an incredibly intimidating moment for me, because I was not, and I'm not, I swear guys, like, I'm not saying this to lift myself up or anything. I was at the what I would consider the peak of corporate for somebody in their mid to late 20s. I was making $200,000 plus a year. Like, I was in a medical device sales role. I was a top performer. So it was just like, I had so much to lose. And the crazy thing is you guys will resonate with this too, is we always hear these stories about these entrepreneurs that just like, they make it happen and they have like this incredible rise because they're not afraid to lose anything because they don't have much to lose. Right. And I'm not at all degrading that. As a matter of fact, some of those people are the most inspiring people on the planet. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to say is there's a difference between somebody who says, well, I'm working at McDonald's so I can pursue my dream versus somebody that is working in a 6-figure role. It is different. It is more intimidating. You have more on the line. And I am thankful that I wasn't in a situation where I was like married, have kids. And I can understand why people that are like married, have kids, it's more challenging then. And I get it because you're the provider, right? So in those situations, I would probably say your partner would need to be incredibly supportive, right? Now for me, what was the dollar amount? What was the figure? It was just like to get relatively close to the point where I wouldn't be living paycheck to paycheck and I could afford my living expenses, which was, a few $1,000s a month because, I have a house and a mortgage and stuff. So I took a pay cut is the moral of the story when I first left, because even though we grew to a 7-figure portfolio, I had a business partner. Like everything was 50-50, right? And we are the type of people where every dollar we made, it went back into that next project, that next coach, that next mentor, all that stuff. So it was not like I left, a year after starting an Airbnb and it was just like, great, I'm raking it. It was like I left making less money and I got to keep grinding. So my point is that moment was very intimidating and very challenging. And yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't have moments where I was like, man, was it worth it? This and that. And of course at first, and then now a year, 2 years down the line, the freedom and autonomy is just magical. It's just magical because it's like, you now have like the ability to just like tap into this creative process of yourself that you've never been able to do before. And you also just have like this like daily structure to your day that like, it's just simple. And everybody loves to paint financial freedom as like on a beach in Hawaii with their laptop out and like this and that. And then like they have a G-Wagon and, they're at clubs and stuff like that. Dude, to me, financial freedom is like, it's a Tuesday. I want to go see that person I haven't seen in months and I don't have to think twice about it. And like, oh, I'm working on this cool project, but it would be cooler if I could just fly to California and hang out with my friends while I'm doing it. And it's not vacation. I'm working the whole time, but I can go somewhere I want to go. So my point is buying those one-way tickets, going to the doctor appointment that you've been putting off for 3 years, to me, that's financial freedom. It's like, I can just do the things I've been putting off and I can still work and be like, I can live as a human while doing it, if that makes sense. If that answered your question.
Well, I don't know if I've ever related to a statement any more than that, because I think that the things that I'm thankful for in a state of my entrepreneurial venture are going to the gym at noon and being able to stay up late and work on my business at 10 a.m., knowing that if I needed an extra half hour in the morning to sleep or whatever, that I could actually activate that. You know what I mean? And like being able to have a level of time freedom is one thing, but location freedom is the biggest thing. Like being able to go, like you said, and go work from XYZ place or help my friend move if I needed to do that in the afternoon. And I think knowing that I'm going to be working X amount of hours per week anyway, being able to build that into my own time blocks to me is like that. I agree. That is what entrepreneurship is and should be glorified, and not Ryan and I drive paid off cars. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm 33. Could I have a BMW that's new? Sure. But we drive paid off cars so we can have our time back. And that to me is like the most important element of this whole game that I think gets glossed over. So I'd love to know who you think is the perfect person to get into Airbnb arbitrage. Like who's the person that, that would take this thing to new heights, that would be able to flourish, that could leave their job in 2 years or whatever, like you did. Who's the person that you're speaking to that should seriously consider this, even in 2025 when there's regulations and, people are maybe shying away from Airbnb?
Yeah, great question. We've seen it happen to people. And I mean, it's no secret, like we offer a mentorship. We have like a mentorship community, as I'm sure many of the real estate investing guests and gurus and stuff do these days. But, we've helped people to do that. My point is I want to tell you the avatar that we've seen do it. And one of them, here's a couple, right? Because I could just be broad and say anyone with a 9-to-5 that wants to build a business or get in real estate, but like, let's get specific. The first avatar would be the young kid that is just willing to risk it all and dive into a business model and make it work, right? Like the 20, 25-year-old dude who's just like, dude, I'm tired of seeing other people do it. I want to make it happen. Dude, if you have $5,000 to your name and at least a 600 credit score, arbitrage like is genuinely the most beginner-friendly business model. And here's why. let's compare it to everything else. Amazon, e-commerce, drop shipping, all that stuff, right? You've got to run ads, which we talked about at length, why ads are not easy at all to understand how to run that data, come up with creatives, like understand how to monitor it, yada, yada. And you're spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on it. Then you've got to manage inventory. Then you've got to manage returns. Then you've got to build a brand. And then you somehow have to network with like some TikTok influencers to sell products. My point is, all those business models require so much more work than it seems. And for very little returns. Airbnb is a very high revenue business model. The average Airbnb is a $50,000 to $60,000 a year property. Like just by you having a property, you are now in a $60,000 a year revenue territory. It's just the nature of the business. So it's very high revenue, way higher margin potential, and it just doesn't require a lot of capital. All you need to do is learn how to talk to people, reach out to property owners, and then do the analysis to make sure the property makes sense. You do that, you can grow this thing in your wildest dreams. That would be avatar one, is the young guy that's like, I'm trying to start my first business. What can I do? The other avatar are the 9-to-5 professionals, like the couples that like just have an affinity for real estate and want to create something bigger. I'll give you a perfect example. My very first clients, they weren't my first clients, but one of my very first clients when I first started coaching people on how to do this, I talk about them all the time. Sonny and Greg, real estate investing couple. They were both realtors, and they had one real estate investment property. Obviously, it just wasn't doing too much for them. And they're like, we love the idea of Airbnb. We love the idea of arbitrage. I don't have all the capital in the world to do this with. We have ambitions of living remotely, doing all this other stuff. So just gave them the blueprint. Really nothing, like normal people that just put in the time and effort. In 6 months, went from 0 to 11 Airbnbs, some co-hosting, some arbitrage. They quit their jobs, moved to Portugal, and they just live in Portugal. They just do this full time, and then they just grow their portfolio from there. And they continue to do real estate investing now because they're realtors in Portugal. They buy properties there. So it's just a matter about doing the work, man. Just set the deadline and just do the work. Follow the process. Like, it works. It's just not going to be easy.
Yeah.
I love it, man. That's a great example. I have one on this. So I want to talk about your 5-step system here to give people the kind of nuts and bolts on how they can do this themselves.
Mm-hmm. So 5 steps to identifying like a profitable market / like Airbnb is what I might have been referencing on that with if there was something in the copy or whatever. So let me kind of break it down. It's in a guide. And I can give it to your listeners too. At the end of the podcast, I'll tell you guys how you can get it. In a nutshell, the 5-step system is how to identify lucrative properties and markets, right? And it's very simple. And I might be botching some of this because I tried to not have 5 steps anymore. I tried to just hone it down to like 3. So when I do live workshops, I just talk about 3. But 5 steps. First is like identifying regulations, right? Can I run short-term rentals in a market if I am not the owner? Most markets, it's yes. And many markets, it's yes, but. Yes, but meaning you need a permit. Okay? Which is not a big deal. Philly, for example, need permits. Okay, no biggie. So that's the first thing, regulations. Then the next step is going to be, let's assess, is there even potential to make money in this market? So we use a software called AirDNA. For those who are brand new to short-term rentals, you may have heard of it. For those of you who have never heard of it, there's a lot of AirDNA is a software that gives you revenue data on Airbnbs, and it is notorious because it's so it's so what's the word I'm looking for?
Volatile, maybe, or like
no.
I've seen it where it like
controversial is what I was going to say.
Got it. Yeah.
So here's why: because AirDNA was popularized because of the lazy method, which is you download the software, you plug in an address, and the software says, "Oh, it'll make $50K," and you, like an idiot, take that number and actually make educated decisions. Right? It's like, no, like there is no magic pill. There's no magic bullet. After working with multiple consulting companies that like consult with like 7-figure investing strategies for buying Airbnbs, AirDNA is accurate, but you cannot do this magic, I'm going to type in an address and get a number thing. You have to compare comparable properties, make sure the data is accurate, their live listings, all this other stuff. But my point is this. First, we want to see, is there proof of concept in the market? Let's say your market is Philly. I'm going to go into Philly and I'm going to narrow down by highest revenue to lowest revenue in a property range that's attainable to me, right? You and I, we're probably not going to arbitrage in our first go around a 10-bedroom mansion. So I'm not going to include that in my search, okay? I'm going to include like 3 to 4 bedroom houses. So then I'm going to scroll through 3 to 4 bedroom houses. And I'm going to say, here are 40 of them making anywhere from 80 to 100K. That proves to me you can make money in the market. Like there's proof of concept and demand. So that's step 2. Then step 3 is what we want to do is compare the properties that we're seeing with available rentals. Because remember, in arbitrage, I'm going to find properties for rent. Okay. So now I'm going to go to a platform that allows me to look at rentals, Zillow, HotPads, Trulia, all that stuff. And I'll tell you the secret platform here. I'll give you the secret sauce. I use hotpads.com or apartments.com. There is a filter on HotPads and apartments.com now that allows me to filter listings down to for rent by owner listings. I can skip the middleman. I could skip the realtors. I could skip the property managers and just talk right to the landlords. So I'm going to go to that, and I'm now going to start to look at the rentals. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the rentals to the high revenue properties I just saw in Philly. So here's what I'm trying to say is like I know I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I'm trying to bring 2 and 2 together here. If I scroll through Philly and I see property after property making $100,000 a year, and they all have the same criteria. They're all located in the same part of town. They all have a pool. They all have, a skyline view. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel, guys. I'm going to make sure that those types of properties exist on the rental market as well. Now I just put myself in the highest odds of reaching that $100,000 range, right? So now the final step here, I may have jumped around steps, but the final step here is, okay, I see rentals here. I see proof of concept. I see that they actually match and compare. Now, how much money are they going to make? So now what I'll do is I'll probably take a pool of those Airbnbs that are making $100,000 a year. That's what, $9,000 a month in revenue, something like that. And now I see that the average rental is $4,000 a month in rent. Okay, $9,000 a month minus 4 minus another $1,500 in expenses. Boom, I have $2,500 to $3,000 a month in cash flow. Looks good to me. Good bird's eye view starting strategy, right? Obviously, we can get into the nitty gritty, like in the weeds when you're really looking into a market. But my point is, all we're doing is seeing what works and just copying them. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Does that expenses number is there a ratio for that you use in terms of, hey, like it's $4,000 a month in rent, I can expect $1,500 and $2,000 a month in expenses? What's that? And then the other question I would have is how much of the expenses are actually on the landlord? Like if the hot water heater breaks, I assume that's the landlord, or is that you, like, because you're using it? Like, give me the breakdown of like how you delineate that.
Yes.
Paying for what?
Really good question. Here, I'll start with the first one. So the first one is the expenses on average are anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per property. And it's based on the size of the property and amenities, because like your cleaning bill is going to be a lot higher on a 4-bed with a pool that requires pool maintenance versus a property that doesn't. So my point is, like, if it's a 1-bedroom apartment, expenses are cheap. Cleaning's cheap. You only have a few cleanings a month, and it's only a few visits, right? And utilities are cheap as well. So it's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month, give or take, depending on the size of the property. So that's like the average expenses, right? Excluding anything that's super exceptional. Now, when it comes to who's responsible for what, it's very simple. Anything a landlord is normally responsible for, structural, HVAC, roof, stuff like that, they are still responsible for. It's still a normal landlord-tenant relationship. I am responsible for any wear and tear or anything caused by a guest, right? Now, not legal advice, but more often than not, if something is caused by a guest, even though I'm on the hook, the platform is covering me for that. So my point is, it's really just like a pass-through cost. But I'm not bothering the landlord with that, is my point. Make sense?
Yeah. Okay. That makes complete sense. I want to know, Vince, what are the future goals with your business? Where do you want to take this on the arbitrage side? I know you're teaching people how to do this, and I can tell you guys, I don't know if it's the local vibe or what we have here, but Ryan and I have interviewed 300 plus people, and we're pretty good with our intuition, I'll tell you. And I just feel that what Vince is telling you is true. And he's somebody that if you're looking to get into this, like you're someone that they should seriously think about whether it's following or joining forces, because at a certain point when we interview enough people, you can kind of tell what's going on in between the ears, and if you're out there just to serve other people or you're out there just to serve yourself. And I didn't tell you that I was going to say this, but it's true. I really feel that way. So anyway, the compliment, I want you to make sure that, yeah, I mean it, but I also am curious about where you want to take this. Like what's next for you? What's the idea of more properties, build your community? What's the vibe there?
Yeah, good question. I'm glad you brought this up, because I will say this, without turning this into another hour-long conversation, the journey of entrepreneurship is another one where you are questioning your goals, and you tend to get lost a little bit. Yeah. Book I always reference all the time is this great book called Conversations with God, if you've ever heard of it. And it's not a religious book per se. It's more of just a book on a narrator questioning God on his purpose and his challenges and all of this stuff. And the book is so good, the audiobook is so good, and the voice acting is so good that it's borderline uncomfortable to listen to. It's like you hear the responses from the God figure in the book, and the responses just give you the chills, and you're just like, man, that's not what I wanted to hear. It's what I needed to hear. Now, anyway, the reason I bring this up is there is a section in the book where God says something along the lines of, life is not this game of you trying to find yourself. It's this path of you defining yourself and specifically going after what you defined. And the narrator, of course, says something along the lines of, but what if I don't know what I want? Like, what if I don't know what I want to define? Like, and God's response is something along the lines of, in order to find out who you are, you have to find out who you're not. So my point is, we do get on this path sometimes where we're chasing something, and you're like, I don't even know if this is really for me or if this is really what I wanted, right? So I've had this realization many times in my entrepreneurial journey, and I am questioning where the next step is. So right now, this is what I've got. The world of Airbnb arbitrage, I do really enjoy it, and I do believe very, very strongly as it being such a fantastic beginner-friendly model. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to also build long-term wealth, that will require purchasing short-term rental properties. So the light bulb went off for me recently on this, and I got really excited about it, which is, if you finally are making money, let's say you started with Airbnb arbitrage, or let's just say you're working corporate, right? And you have money to play with, and you want to start buying investment properties. What is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is, how do I find a property that actually will also net me a good cash flow? Now, there's only really two ways to do this, right? If you want the equity and the cash flow, without going into big commercial deals, right? Big apartment complexes, all that stuff. For the average you and me person, how do we buy an investment property that has the highest potential to get cash flow? Option A is multifamily. You get 4-bedroom or 4-unit multiplexes and stuff like that. And great. But the thing is, you're still probably going to cap out at like $1,000 a month in cash flow, and you've got 4 tenants to deal with, right? On the flip side, you could just buy 5, 6, 7, $100,000 to $200,000 per year short-term rental properties. Because here's the thing, is if you just buy 5 of those, you have multi-7 figures in equity, and you have $10,000, $20,000 a month in cash flow. You can literally do nothing else for the rest of your life and be fine. So my point is, I think the next strategy for me is finding a really great way to do that. So this is all coming full circle. That nightmare property that I told you guys about at the beginning of the podcast, right? I bought that 5-6 years ago. And literally this past Monday, a week ago, we closed. I sold it. And thank the Lord, I made out well on the sale. So I am now leveraging that capital to purchase my first short-term rental property. And the strategy here is buying only really high-end, high-quality short-term rental properties that will produce $120,000 a year or more. Because why? High cash flow, high equity and appreciation. But there's one more component to this. And it's, if you're going to buy a property to do that, then you want to make sure it's a rock star. So I'm actually working with a consulting group on this to get some help. We've identified some properties where they're like, dude, if you want to make this property make $200K through data, we're not just going to buy the property. We're going to buy the property. We're going to put $30,000 into putting a pickleball court in the backyard. We're going to put mini golf. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So my point is, I'm super excited about the strategy because I see the data. I see that like this works. But here's the important thing I want to emphasize is because I'm sure you guys are about to ask me this question, or anybody else that's listening is about to ask me this question, which is, why don't I just do that and not even bother with arbitrage? Because that is 10 times more risky. Because now you're putting in $100,000, $200,000 of your capital into a short-term rental property that you don't know how to analyze and you don't know how to run. So my point is, start with arbitrage, make the money, get the experience. Now you know how to analyze deals and run this business like a machine. You can leverage it into really high revenue properties that you can purchase. Now you have the best of both worlds. So that's where I'm at. I want to learn this. I want to, grow that thing to the moon. And maybe I've had this epiphany lately where I really want to start doing syndications. I think that would be super fun. So like pool together investor money, buy like crazy experienced short-term rental properties, give them money back, and just do something cool with that. That's what I'm thinking. But yeah, I digress.
I love it, man. That was very well thought out, actually. And I do honestly a great answer with the book. I'm going to take a listen. I love audiobooks on the good commute here. So question for you. This one's a little bit of just a personal question, because Corey and I are obviously formed a partnership. You mentioned you had a partner. I just want your thoughts on, for people that are trying to get into the entrepreneurial game, they might be nervous to go in alone. How did you find your partner? Give me the story behind that, and then why you may or may not recommend a partner for other people that are looking to, whether they get into arbitrage, just entrepreneurship in general. I just want your thoughts.
Man, you guys ask such good questions. This is a really important topic, and this can be discussed at length. I started a YouTube channel not long ago, like a personal one, and I'm totally lost with it. I don't even know what I'm doing with it. I'm just throwing content out there. And I made a video where I just rant about partnership for a while. And this is such an important topic, and we did not realize the importance of this, and I'm sure you guys can resonate with this big time. Here's why. Most people get into business with a partner just because it's less intimidating. And that is a bad decision. That is a bad decision. And you don't realize the implications of that at first, because it's fun. There's not like, it's like, okay, I've got my buddy, we're doing this together, great. But what ends up happening is you guys start stepping on each other's toes on certain tasks, because you actually do have similar skill sets, and he's not really good at one thing and you're really good at another thing. Or you start forfeiting decision making on things that you really wanted to make decisions on, and you're like, I wanted to be the one to learn this. I wanted to be the one to screw up in this. So my point is, you really forfeit a lot with a partner. It's not just about the money. You forfeit a lot. Now, I'm not trying to speak negatively on having a partner. Clearly, me and my business partner were very successful with regards to being able to grow these businesses that we've created together. I didn't mention this to you guys. He also, created the coaching business with me as well. So my point is, my advice on partnership is complementary. The best partnerships are one where it's like, hey man, you're really, really good at sales. You do that. I'm really, really good at marketing. I'll do that. And let's not step on each other's toes. And that will allow you to move so much more quickly, because it's like hyper focused on your lane, and you guys can complement each other. Because him and I were doing this dance for literally the first year and a half when we started this business. For any time we were about to start something new, like taking sales calls, doing setting, or reaching out to landlords, or doing property analysis, it would be one of us just saying, no, I want to do it. And then the other one would be like, all right, fine, you do it. And then eventually I'd be like, well, I want to do it too. And then I'd have to, it was just like this weird thing where we were just like, kind of like competing against each other in the same business to do the same things. And it was like, it just wasn't productive. Now it worked just because we're psychos and we work really hard, right? But that's not the case for everybody. So my biggest thing is that. And then the other thing, this is very, very important, and this is even more important if we're talking partner as in a spouse, is alignment on goals. Before we started this thing, we were driving out, before we started the coaching business, right? And when we started our Airbnb portfolio, we were driving out to Pittsburgh, 4-hour drive to launch our first property. We have this long conversation about, all right, like, what are we really doing this for? Right? Like, what is this actually about? Because most people don't have this conversation, guys. And it's just like, we want to make money. And that's not a concrete goal. And we sat, and just throughout this very long conversation, we said, okay, we're going to grow it to this. We're going to get our time back. And then when we get our time back, I want to parlay that into a new opportunity. Okay, what opportunities are we thinking about? Okay, boom, 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 boom. But my point is, if we didn't have that conversation, I could have said something like, well, I just want to get it to $20K a month and quit my job. And then he could have said, no, I want to make $100,000 a month and I want to build an empire. Because if we just didn't have that conversation, we just kept going, then there would have been this weird point of tension at some point where I'm like, dude, I don't have the motivation to keep going with this thing. And he's like, no, I do. And then there's like, I got to buy each other out. And then there's disparity and all this other stuff. So my point is alignment on goals, like actual specific alignment on goals is very, very important. I'm sure you guys have had conversations about that, which is like, what is the vision that we're building here together? And are we both aligned on what that vision is? So at some point, you got to realize this too. At some point, no matter what business model you do, no matter what partnership you get into, no matter how much you love each other, no matter how much you guys are aligned, at some point, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you guys are probably going to say, I want to do something different, right? So it's important to just have these conversations now. Don't get into partnerships just for the sake of it being uncomfortable on your own, because there's probably going to be a time where you're like, I wish I would have just done it on my own.
I really like that. You went into a lot of the tactful stuff. I think a lot of people, when we ask that question, they kind of hedge risk, and they explain like the logical reason to do it and not really the emotional. And I don't know, it's the way you tied that together was really nice. I just have a question to piggyback off of that. It's like, you mentioned the skill sets, and some of the things you mentioned were you nailed it right on the head for both of us, and like not wanting to step on each other's toes, and then sometimes wanting to step on each other's toes, and then having the alignment. But talking about, we read a book called Traction, and that really helps define the integrator versus the visionary. And I think a lot of people use that as the staple. But for you, it doesn't have to be on that book at all. I'm just curious how you guys got to the point where you realized you were jumping on each other's toes. How did you realize one was better at marketing? How did you realize one was better at sales? Or did you just pick a lane and say, hey, here's all the roles that we have to fill, and you're going to take this, I'm going to take this. What does it look like in the war room?
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing, there's two different sides to this. The arbitrage side, fortunately, there's very few things that you actually have to do. So it was kind of just like, we were both good at talking to landlords. We both came from corporate sales. We would just divide and conquer on that. And that was more of we're both doing the same thing, but we're just going to do it twice as much thing. Right. So that on the arbitrage side, it wasn't so much of a problem, because it was just like, just get deals. And then once we get the deal, we get it up and running. And then there was a little bit of this disparity of like, okay, who's going to run the operational side and build out the tech and all that stuff? He's more inclined on that end. So he did it. And even though at first I was like resistant to it, I was like, no, I want to be involved. I want to do this. I want to feel productive. I want to do it. I want to learn it. And then over time, I was just like, dude, what am I doing? You do it. Like, you're better at it. So to answer your question, it was forcing myself to think that I had to be involved in everything, to eventually saying, no, it's just not for me. Good topic on this is that whole like recent let them theory from Mel Robbins. I didn't read the book, but I listened to her talk about this in a podcast, and her whole theory is just like, if there's any sort of resistance, like just let it happen. Just let it happen. And then you have to respond accordingly. But stop trying to be a control freak, right, is my point. So there's that. And I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember the other parts of the question. I got lost.
No, honestly, I think you nailed it. There was really just like defining the roles, and then at what point. So it seems like you guys would just go through it in trial and error, right? Like you get to a point where you're trying to jump in on a project, he's already handling it. You're like, and then it just honestly writing it down on paper, that really helps us. Like we went through these exact motions, and we're like, hey, you're actually really good at this. I'm going to take a step back. I think I definitely we both have it in our own ways, but I definitely can be a control freak. And I realized that a lot, like going into it. I wanted my hands in every little thing. And I'm like, dude, at some point you just got to stop. Like, what are you doing? Right. And then the creative freedoms, I loved that you brought that up too. Like Corey has one way of thinking. I have another way of thinking. He has one style. I have a different style. It's like, you got to find the happy blend. And if you're just running the hamster wheel over and over and over on the same topic, you're not getting the business forward. You're working like in the weeds too much. So I thought it was very concise, dude. Overall, I would just say like this conversation was a breath of fresh air. I want to echo what Corey said. Like we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and I can tell you are about serving others and helping, the world go around. And I think it's amazing that we got to network today, because not only are we in each other's backyards, I just feel a lot of synergy here, and just I like being around good people and people that are trying to help others. And, our podcast, we talked about this, like our main goal here is just to educate others of like what you weren't taught in school, and show people that there's another way and there's more out there. And here's an inspiring story of Vince, who's built an incredible business with a partner, and you can do it too. So I don't know if I missed anything, Cora. I just wanted to say this was one of my favorite episodes in the last, long time.
No, I don't think you did, man. I think this was a great entryway into the Airbnb arbitrage, but also like the alignment of of, knowing what you want to do as an entrepreneur. And that's important because, Ryan and I, it's the communication aspect between partners is like so key. And like, there's different times where we're both feeling different ways and you wouldn't know it unless you bring it up. And then, in any relationship, you create scenarios in your head that don't exist about how the other person's thinking or feeling. And they, without the communication aspect of just talking through it, that's why most partnerships fail. And at the end of the day, the long-term vision of like, hey, we're actually here to serve each other in this partnership. Forget the integrator visionary stuff. It's like, if we're here to serve each other in this partnership, then we know that it can amicably go in the direction that we want it to go. And when we don't feel like that, then we put each other first. And that's the biggest thing that I wanted to add in terms of the partnership thing. Cause none of the other stuff matters. I had a interesting weekend this weekend. I was with my fiance and I was with family and I couldn't get my head out of my business. Mm-hmm. And normally Rye has pretty good intuition. We met this morning and it's not like you didn't bring it up or anything, but I couldn't get my head. I enjoyed the weekend as much as I could, but I have certain weekends where I just can't get away mentally. And I'm thinking about the business. I'm actually doing sales call on a Saturday, whatnot. And like in your brain, you think of scenarios of like, oh, like what's this? What is I wonder what my partner's doing. And then I take step backs and I think, like we're doing this so that we can enjoy our weekends and we can take time off and we can do it from a standpoint of like, hey, I actually want to live my life. And I have to remind myself that sometimes because, if you don't communicate to your partner, you don't have conversations and, one day he's up till 3 a.m. working on a project and then I'm sleeping, it's like,
yeah,
I was a little bit of a ramble, but the reason why I brought that up is because I think that partnerships are they're undervalued, but they're often shit on in sense of like, oh, they're not going to work out. And the more that you take into account, like what that person is about as a human, that's to me the most important thing. And, you can go through the waters of and navigate any challenge that comes up. So yeah. I appreciate your thought on that. I don't know if you have anything more to say. I was going to wrap the episode up, but
one last thing I want to touch on. Well, so first off, there is this weird, maybe it's just the entrepreneurial nature of us or work ethic or whatnot. We do have this weird obsessive FOMO where it's like they're working harder than me. Like, are they working harder than me? And then you get the same FOMO when they're taking a day off. It's weird. It's just like I understand where you guys are coming from on that. And I think it's just the way we're wired.
What I was saying, Vince, is it's my own problem too. I'm not even putting any of it on him. It's like it's my own.
That's my point. Yeah,
it's my own problem of being like, well, Corey, it's your problem. You can't get your head out of the business. It's not Ryan's problem. It's just an interesting way that I like go about it inside my own head. I'm like, you need to be able to separate church and state here, dude. You're never going to experience any of the fruits of your own labor, right? Like that's where my head was at. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. So the one thing I wanted to say, this is kind of just like to tie it all up, right? I'll never forget this Zoom call. So I recorded the Zoom call and I put it on my YouTube channel. So if you want to just check it out just for pure listening, I'm not selling anything on my YouTube channel. It's just like random content. But we had this mentor that worked with us very closely when we first started our mentorship company, like our coaching business. And we were still like transitioning out of W-2, and we got on this call and we asked him, we just said, hey man, look, we did this so we can make X amount of dollars per month and just like work like 3 hours a day and just like live our lives. Like we were just very like, we were burnt out. We were just like, working our asses off, like, little progress, whatever this, that. And we just straight up told him the truth. We were like, dude, look, like we just did this for make a decent amount of money and like barely work. And he was just like, dude, he's like, freedom's not about working less. It's about working on only what you want to work on. And like, ultimately, if you want to be anybody great, you need to have something that is driving you that you are working on, because guess what's going to happen when you want to talk to anybody else who's great? They're going to be like, oh, you work 3 hours a day and you party the rest of the day. Like, I don't want to talk to you. So my point is, in order to have that, there needs to be some like bigger thing that you're striving for outside of yourself. Like usually a vision just is not all about you. It's about some sort of impact that you're leaving. Great podcast on all this stuff is that guy, I forget his name, but Founders, if you ever listen to it, just insanely obsessive about how the biggest entrepreneurs and CEOs were obsessive about their vision and their impact on the world. So really, really cool content out of that. But anyway, I digress.
No, thank you for sharing. And I think Ryan and I fall somewhere in between. It's like, I've said this in a number of podcasts. I don't need a $200 million company to make myself happy. Like, I don't, and the obsessiveness sometimes drives me in the wrong direction. So I'm like, I just know, and I've said this on a number of podcasts, like we've had some family members pass away. We've had some things happen in our lives that just know this is fleeting. You know, there's a creator online who passed away. I'm not going to say his name, but he's a real estate investor. He passed away at like 42 years old of like some sort of issue with his heart. I don't know. And I was just like, you know, we're 9-8 years away from that. And I don't want to make work and entrepreneurship the only thing that's important. So that balance has been probably the biggest struggle in my life, honestly, in the last year. Is just like, I want it really bad, but I can't obsess so much over it that I forget about the rest. And that to me is like something that I'm just personally working through. So I figured I'd just bring it up on this pod. I know we could talk for hours, dude. I respect your time. I know you have to leave, but if people want to follow you, they want to learn more about you, they want to network, they want to potentially be coached by you, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah. I appreciate that. So, one of the things I love about you guys is like you really do show up for your audience here and try to provide value first. So I want to do the same. If specifically on the Airbnb side, like if you're listening and you're like, I genuinely want to learn how to start with Airbnb and I want to like, you know, kind of fast track my first few steps on that, then I'm just going to offer this to you specifically as part of this podcast. So I'll call it the cash flow quick start kit. I'll give you two things. The first is the 5-step guide that I mentioned earlier. This is a PDF that breaks down literally in detail, screenshots, examples, the math behind finding your first Airbnb market and property and how to identify if it's a good property and or market at all. This is literally stuff that we teach our paid clients. Okay. And then the other thing is basically just a like an Airbnb game plan session. So this is a call with me or someone on my team. This is not a sales call. This is specifically a call to just kind of hear where you're at, hear what you're looking to attain, and then ultimately help you just build out the first few action items that you can do to start making progress with Airbnb. So if you want these two things, my Instagram, it's Vinny, Vinny, BNB, like Airbnb, and just shoot me a message of, here, hold on. I want to make one specifically for this podcast. Just shoot me a message of wealth juice. And what we'll do is we'll send that right over to you right away. Now, if you just want to connect with me personally and you just normal like entrepreneurship, non-Airbnb related stuff, my Instagram is just Vince_Villani, Villani. But anyway, if you're here specifically to learn how to start with Airbnb, VINNY, just DM me wealth juice and we'll get that over to you. Cool.
Awesome, man. Vince, this was a pleasure. I love, this is like my favorite thing to do is have conversations with smart people that are entrepreneurs that are trying to do good in the world. So I appreciate your time, brother.
Likewise. You guys are awesome. I really do appreciate this 100%.